The only unvaccinated and openly anti-vax NHL player on a Canadian team got COVID, shockingly, and now it's likely destroyed his entire career because he developed a heart condition because of COVID. So this is a lesson to others out there, especially if you have your dream career, you're playing sports for a living, making millions, yet you decide not to get the vaccine because you read something on Facebook, and now, yeah, there goes your life. So here is first the couple of the tweets that Josh Archibald, this is the Edmonton Oilers player that is in the middle of all this, he tweeted this out on May 6th, 2020, saying, "The hidden agenda behind COVID-19. Plandemic. Was COVID-19 a plan?" No. No, it was not. Pretty dumb stuff. So that's one tweet. Here's another one. This from May 6, 2020, replying to Donald Trump or tweeting to Donald Trump. How many more doctors need to come forward about Dr. Fauci's lies before he's thrown in jail? For some reason, there's a period here. I don't know why, but that's the least of his problems. But here you go. This is so absurd. Giving you an idea of his anti-vax stance. He was the only unvaccinated NHL player on a Canadian team, or is the only unvaccinated NHL player on a Canadian team. Elliot Friedman here, tweeting out, Edmonton coach Dave Tippett announces Josh Archibald out indefinitely. He had COVID in the summer and has been diagnosed with the heart condition myocarditis. Now, Josh Archibald, he had been feeling unwell at some point over the summer, but never got tested at the time. He got tested more recently. They discovered that he had the COVID antibodies. And then on top of that, doctors from testing him discovered that he has myocarditis. So myocarditis includes symptoms like rapid and abnormal heartbeat, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, swelling of legs, ankles, and feet. It is a serious heart condition. More here from Sportsnet. Myocarditis is an inflammation of the heart muscle, the same condition that struck Oilers' third-string goalie Alex Stalock as a result of a bout with COVID-19. It has become relatively common for athletes to suffer from myocarditis as COVID-19 leaves their hearts vulnerable when they ramp up their training post-illness. So this is a illness that is common in athletes that have had COVID-19 as they push their bodies, push their heart to the extent that they can push them. And that makes the issue much worse. Now, there is no cure for myocarditis, but you can manage it. But it is a hell of a thing to manage. And especially if your job is to play professional sports where you're pushing yourself over and over again throughout the week. This almost, if it's a serious case of myocarditis, it almost certainly will, if not end his career, have a serious impact on his ability to play hockey. And it's important to point out here that Archibald is a fourth liner, meaning he doesn't play a lot of minutes compared to other players. He doesn't score many goals each season. He is a low-tiered player that is lucky in many ways to be in the NHL. So here's a guy making millions, playing a sport that he loves, put all that at risk because he was brainwashed around conspiracies involving the vaccines. It really is, it's sad. And people should take this as a lesson. If you yourself are still unvaccinated, look at how many people have dropped, be it the AM radio hosts who were anti-vax, be it people I've covered who were just civilians that were anti-vax, then got COVID and regretted not getting the vaccine, or athletes like this that have now potentially destroyed their entire careers because they were anti-vax. More here from Sportsnet. Archibald was the last player on a Canadian NHL team to remain unvaccinated, which would have been very problematic had the Oilers planned to keep him in their lineup. Every time the team crossed the U.S. border and then returned to Canada 13 times this season, Archibald would have been forced to quarantine for 14 days away from his team and teammates. That would have resulted in him missing close to half the season, as well as copious amounts of practice time. And with the likelihood of an American opponent once the playoffs began, it never seemed realistic that an unvaccinated Archibald would have been able to play. So you have here a situation where even if he didn't get myocarditis, he really wouldn't have been able to play hockey unless he got the vaccine, because of the restrictions around quarantining and crossing the border to play American teams, it just puts the entire team into a horrible position where they now have this one player putting other players potentially at risk, in addition to also putting the entire team at risk and force them to have to go through, all of these various steps to even allow him to stay on the roster. Now, one last thing here, as just to point out the amount of money that he would be losing, or is losing now, I guess. It would cost him up to 40% of his $1.5 million salary if he remained unvaccinated, maybe more. So not only is he unvaccinated, now he has myocarditis. He may lose, a larger chunk of his salary here and potentially end his career completely, all because he was brainwashed over the vaccines. It's both a sad story and a lesson to others out there that regardless of how famous you are, how much you make, what your job is, your life can be ruined because you read something on Facebook that convinced you the vaccines are unsafe, when the fact is there have been billions of shots given out at this point, and the only people that are dropping are the ones that are unvaccinated.